back to Inside the Box. I'm your host, Joanna Lee, and in celebration counting down to Asian Heritage Month, today is the first episode of our Classical Music Edition series. Today's guest is a truly remarkable musician and woman. She is a brilliant pianist, educator, founder of Notes with a Purpose, and a Yamaha artist. She has been consistently recognized as a soloist and chamber musician, and has performed in festivals across Canada, United States, and Europe. She has won international and national competitions and gained many other accolades and collaborated with notable artists. Also, she has performed in prestigious venues all over the world, such as Carnegie Hall, and has had residencies in the Banff Center for the Arts. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Alexandria Lee. Welcome, Alex. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! I just wanted to say, it's really great to finally have someone as great as you to come on my show. And yeah, would you like to tell everybody about your origin story and how you got to where you are today musically?
My life started when we roomed together at Banff, actually. For our viewers, Joanna and I met at the Banff Center when we were rooming there, and she was there for violin master classes, and I was there performing for the various master classes as a collaborative pianist. So, Joanna, it's so nice to see you. It's been a long time.
For sure.
So my origin story as a pianist, I have a mom who's a piano teacher. So she started me off when I was 2.5 years old. I don't remember the first lessons that I had, but apparently I really loved the rewards I got at the end of it. So, so she knew how to motivate me in that sense. And then my mom had taught me for a number of years, and then I had a little bit of a retirement at age 7. And then I came back to piano when I was 10. And I was pretty serious about it when I came back to it. And it was because of a chance meeting with a wonderful piano teacher in the Bay Area. So I'm in Las Vegas right now. And I'm born and raised here. So finding really top-notch musical education was a little difficult back in the 80s in Las Vegas. It was a growing city, but culture wasn't necessarily arts culture wasn't really prominent. So yeah, my mom actually shipped me off to San Jose for my piano lessons for a while. So I did that from the age of 10.5 to the time I graduated high school.
Amazing. So obviously you continued. Can you tell me more about your experiences after high school?
Yeah. So I was really excited to leave Las Vegas just to start my independence for my parents. And so I went to Eastman School of Music for my bachelor's. And following that, I moved to Long Island, New York, where I was there for about 6 years for my master's and my doctorate. It actually took my doctorate longer, but I moved into the city for my doctorate. I guess I'm just like a lifelong student. It was hilarious when I graduated with my doctorate. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not attached to a university anymore. Mm-hmm. So I got my DMA in piano performance. And I'm a pianist. And now I teach. I've been teaching for the last 10 years, but it's really lovely to pass the love of music forward. I know that sounds cliche and cheesy, but it's true. My mom's a piano teacher, so I definitely love teaching ever since I was watching her.
That's beautiful. I love your backstory and the fact that you are, as a daughter of a piano teacher and continued her legacy. That's amazing. I wish my story was somewhat similar, but everyone's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wait, I will pause before. I'm so sorry. I just realized my first piano is on display here.
amazing. That's your first
Yeah.
piano?
Yeah. My mom and dad got it for me when I was a few months old. And I love that. It's made out of, it's actually awesome. It's really heavy. I mean, it's a wonderful toy piano. So, yeah.
Wow. It's legit.
Yes. Quality pianos throughout life.
Yes, absolutely. That's amazing that your mom, took the time and the dedication to find you a proper teacher and make the sacrifices. Do you often find that the way she raised you, made it easier for you to become a musician and help your circumstances with your career?
Yes. Oh, being successful in music takes a lot of hard work, but it also takes a lot of luck. I feel lucky to have been born to a mom who really cares about music education. I found a love of music. So that was obviously a question that I had to answer for myself as I was growing up. I was like, am I doing this because my mom wants me to, because, or am I doing this because I love it? And, music is amazing. Thank you, Mom, also for the musical genes. Some things came really easy to me. So as a talented kid growing up, some things were easier, but, even if I think that if I didn't have talent, probably my work ethic would have been implemented sooner. But my mom definitely tried to give me as much help, pulled out all her resources. And so I'm very grateful for her. And my dad too. So they're very supportive.
Absolutely. And parents are, I would say, a key factor in success, especially when it's something to do with the arts and what you want to pursue. And I feel like it's not only financial support that's important, but emotional support and, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Speaking of giving back to the community, I know you started Notes with a Purpose. What led you to that role?
So Notes with a Purpose is a nonprofit that I started in 2016. It took me a year to pull everything together. And it's a music nonprofit which brings opportunities for music engagement to Las Vegas, where, as I mentioned, back in the 80s, Las Vegas was a little bit of a desert in many senses. and um, and so just growing up, I just said, it would be great to one day come back to Las Vegas, or, when I was in New York, I'm like, one day to go back to Vegas and do something for it. I don't know what. And just circumstances led me to one day go, hey, I want to pair wine to music. Does anyone do that? And it was just this really cool idea. Because I didn't know much about wine, but I happened to be drinking this. I was drinking a Chardonnay while I was watching a string quartet performance, and it matched. It was the Dvorak American String Quartet.
Oh, I love that string quartet.
And yeah, it was fantastic. It's just like it's just so iconic. The music is so iconic, and I had just started. I think I just turned legal drinking age. So, or maybe no. Well, in any case, I was in my 20s. I didn't drink that much. Wine wasn't like such a big thing for me. So I was sipping the Chardonnay, and it tasted grassy to me. It was very bright, and it matched the vibrancy of the music. And I said, whoa, it was mind-blowing. I literally looked around the performance hall, because this was a wine that I purchased during intermission, and I could bring it into the hall. And I was like, is anyone having the same visceral sensory experience? And no. So that was a seed that was planted in my brain, and I didn't act on it until 10 years later when I decided to go for producing concerts which paired wine to music. that led to my first festival, 3-day chamber music festival here in Vegas. I had 18 out of town musicians. They were sort of like the rock stars in my eyes. You know, they were my mentors and people I loved. I had Phil Setzer come out, and I made him play the Dvorak American Quartet. Yeah, I was like, we're doing. And I had Arnold Troy, who is a beloved Canadian cellist.
Oh, I love Arnold Troy. He's amazing.
Yeah, he brought his Stradivari Buongiorno cello. It was actually the Las Vegas Wine and Music Festival was his last pit stop for his loan for for that cello.
Yes.
So they had performed the Dvorak, and I had a sommelier pair wine to the music. And that was really cool. I had not moved back to Vegas quite yet. So I managed to pull this together like while not living in Vegas full time. That was difficult. You knew me at this time and you probably saw me pulling out my hair. And after that 3-day festival, I just felt so compelled to bring more to Vegas. I was a Carnegie Hall fellow, so for 2 years. So what that means is I was trained to be a teaching artist for their programs. So meaning I engaged so many different kinds of audiences. I went into schools, I went to prisons, hospitals, and I was trained in all manners of how to create programs and how to articulate the programs to different audiences. So I wanted to bring that here to Vegas. So Notes with a Purpose, one of our flagship programs is called the Music Juicebox series.
Oh, wow. And
that brings Carnegie Hall teaching artists to our school district and provides these performances, they're interactive performances for 4th and 5th graders free of charge. For no more than 150 kids in one assembly. So it's intimate enough for them to just be up close to the music. So, you know, I eventually moved back to Vegas within a year of launching the festival, the Wine and Music Festival. And within that year, I created a 501c3, which is a nonprofit called Notes with a Purpose, to encapsulate music outreach. But also for our fundraisers, that's where I do the wine and music pairings now.
Amazing. You know, I have to say that I really admire your work ethic. I've always known you to be a hard worker, even back in Banff when I was sort of, you know, watching all my movies and you were in and out.
I was paid to do that stuff, so it's all good.
I think I could appreciate that during your breaks, you still wanted to spend the time with me.
Of course. Yeah.
Best summer music camp roommate ever.
You were mine for sure.
Oh my goodness, the face masks, those were the best.
We should have come on with our face masks.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the way, you know, we should have presented ourselves. We would have been, you know, we would have some sort of ensemble, I guess. A lot of, you know, your experience as a fellow or, you know, your residencies led you to this role. Speaking of other experiences, how has your experience been as a Yamaha artist?
Oh, so a Yamaha artist designation is really cool. The Yamaha company has a really large piano division, obviously. They've just really, they're always on the forefront of piano technology and all of that. And so, and I also grew up playing a Yamaha. Oh. So my uncle was a rep actually for Yamaha pianos. So when I was 12 years old, I specifically remember, I don't know why it's just one of those vivid memories, but my uncle literally just called me up on called the house up. I had my new pink phone, you know, I'm like, hello, you know. My uncle goes, hey, you know, there's such thing as a Yamaha artist. I think you should totally become one. I mean, you're winning all these competitions and you play Yamaha. So, and I was like, I don't think I can just call them up and be like, hi, sign me on. Let's just say that there are fewer than 125 Yamaha artists.
Oh, no way. That's
well, like for the classical division, there's also jazz,
right,
and pop. And so I was just a little bit like, okay, you're dreaming, uncle. So, but fast forward to 2015, yeah, I was asked by the president of Yamaha Artist Services to join their roster. And it was like this really cool moment where I called my uncle up. I'm like, guess what? So being a Yamaha artist just really has its perks. They're just a lovely, lovely company. They do so many things. They have their arm in directing education, remote learning, but also just as a service for a Yamaha artist. When I had my wine and music festival stuff, or when I have a major concert, they supply a beautiful 9-foot concert grand piano for me.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's just a lovely perk, you know, to have this awesome instrument. And it's something that I'm always jealous of violinists and every other instrumentalist doesn't get to choose their instrument. So, you know, to have the option of, you know, this performance sounds really major. Alex, let me just ship out the, you know, pre-request. Let's ship out this piano and send along one of our technicians.
Oh my goodness, amazing.
Yeah, and their technicians are just amazing. I have the best feeling is after their Japanese technician works on the piano. They're just so respectful of the craft. I mean, they're craftsmen, and so I'm respectful of what they're doing, and I'm blown away that, you know, that these piano techs are helping me bring this music to life. You know, it's just like all the components are there. Awesome instrument, awesome technician, you know, and it's really cool.
So, speaking of performances, what was your most notable performance?
Oh, the one that I was so excited. I have a few performances which really stick out, but I mean, this is like the quintessential answer for so many musicians is the time that I debuted in Carnegie Hall. You know, like there was a lot of excitement about that because I was being presented by a really amazing organization called Pro Musicus. And Pro Musicus is it's an international award. It's been around since the 1960s, and they actually don't have a piano award every year. So they're very socially minded, humanitarian, just amazing organization, Pro Musicus. So they presented me for my debut since I won the award. And that was really cool. Just, you know, I was practicing till the wee hours of the night, just chugging coffee, just like super pumped. And I played the Mussorgsky pictures at an exhibition there.
Oh, I love that.
And it was just, you know, that's an epic piece. That's an epic place. You just go, this is so cool. But I've also had, you know, more other performances which really have been impactful. You know, I do a lot of music outreach performances. So performing at the homeless shelter, doing my first concert there was as the director of Notes with a Purpose. It was actually right before I launched Notes with a Purpose. I played a concert for the addiction recovery program clients. And I actually ended with the Bach chaconne from the D minor.
The Busoni.
Yep. So I played the Busoni arrangement, and I chose that piece because it just speaks to the transformation of someone, you know, with addiction recovery clients who are going through a 15-month program. Yes. I mean, that's a long haul. And as you know, as a violinist, that chaconne is like a long haul. You know, you just have the theme gets transported through so many elements, and And then at the end, it's just victorious. It's like, I am still who I am, but just evolved, right? So
absolutely.
So when I get the chance to connect a program to the audience in that manner, it's really notable. It's remarkable for me, and I feel lucky to have an audience. Of course, I don't want people to have to go through, addiction, but in order to connect with people, there's common ground, and music can be that.
Okay, so I remember the time you came to Vancouver and played Pictures of a Night, and I remember the theme where there were baby ducks. I thought it was absolutely adorable. I was just picturing little chicks just like peeping at their mom, and it reminds me of these attached little ducklings, always following their moms everywhere. And
that piece is so illustrative. Obviously, Mussorgsky does an incredible job just bringing these images to life, and that is the whole thing is difficult, but that one, when you can pull it off, is really fun.
Absolutely. Oh, I loved it. And the fact that it was, meant for the orchestra and rearranged for the piano, I thought it was absolutely amazing that you were able to captivate that. It didn't feel like there was anything lacking, and that arrangement in itself is really amazing, I would have to say.
It's actually the opposite.
Really? I thought it was, okay.
No, but I actually thought that too, growing up, because Ravel's orchestration of pictures is so accurate. So I have to say, like, growing up, whenever I'd listen to a piano recording of it, I'd be like, this is lacking. This is just not, because what makes piano playing so interesting to me is the emulating of other instruments. So
absolutely.
To me, like, hearing Ravel's orchestration is like how I want to hear pictures. So it made sense. It just, it's almost sacrilege, when I started out when I was learning the piece, I was like, nah, I actually prefer the orchestration. We screw the piano part. But actually, with one of the things, as I said, that I really focus on in piano playing is to find different textures and timbres that really create more of a multi-dimensional way of playing piano. I don't think piano is a beautiful instrument, but what really gets me is when I finally get to play chamber music with someone. And
absolutely, I love playing chamber music with you.
And hearing, it's like, oh, I just wish I sounded like a violin. I wish that I could, like draw these colors like a violinist or a flutist or a clarinetist. And then in chamber music, it happens, and it just feels awesome.
Yeah, that's, I have to say, I appreciate Pianist a lot more since meeting you.
Thank you. It's my job.
For sure. I mean, it's true when they say that you shouldn't call them your accompanist, but your collaborative pianist, because they're really putting in a huge team effort to make you sound good. So
if you have a pianist that doesn't do their job well, they can sink you, So
for sure.
It's one of those. It's a term that, the term accompanist is so secondary. It's like so in the background, and we read through the Brahms violin sonatas, you and I, and piano does not play a secondary role with that.
No, they don't at all.
It's absolutely intertwined, and so I'm really glad that I could up your just your standards for piano playing.
You've also spoiled me, because I cannot just play with anyone.
Well, you shouldn't. That's right.
Yeah. It's like, you're not Alex. Kidding. Oh, well, I do remember you performing the Busoni for me, and I think we were comparing Shakan on the violin and the piano at one point when I visited you.
Oh, that's right. Yes. I was just starting out learning that, and wow, and it's evolved a lot since then. There are some pieces which, I'm a fast learner. I can really comprehend the music behind the meaning behind the music. I can hear layers. I mean, it's obviously something that I've worked hard to do, but with the Busoni chaconne, well, with the Bach chaconne, it's such a lifelong work of art. It's and also what's really neat. I mean, people, maybe some people don't realize this, but your perception of a piece of music or song changes as you go through life. So the way that I hear the Bach chaconne from 4 years ago is so different now. And I've also played it more, and yeah, but I'm always learning through that piece. It always feels different to me when I play it.
I love that, because you know how there are some people who have this notion that everything has to be consistently the same every single time you pick up a piece. And I like the fact that you are telling us that, there are different opportunities to make it sound even better or change a few things. And it's constantly evolving. And I think you really hit that on the nail. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Obviously, you're musical and talented, but you are also very multifaceted when it comes to roles, since you have roles as a pianist, an educator, lecturer, and you're pretty much a leader. So, can you tell me more about those roles and how they intertwine, or how they are different, and how they affect you on a day-to-day basis?
If you told me in my early 20s that I would be founding an organization and leading people and sitting on a board of directors of an arts organization, and I wouldn't have believed you. First of all, I would have been like, what's a 501c3? So as I was growing up and, during our formative years through high school and college, I knew there was something outside of just playing. I mean, just playing is really freaking difficult. Yeah. But I just felt like there could be so much someone can do with their music. I think music can be a really personal thing. It's wonderful when people learn music, for their own, on their own, for their own soul searching. Right. I teach students who don't compete, who some are adults, and it's so wonderful to see that. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I have always loved teaching. So when I picked teaching up, it just went hand in hand. And to be able to break down concepts teaches you something. The greatest form of learning is by teaching, they say, because you have to be so clear on what you want. You have to know how to articulate something. The worst thing I remember hearing occasionally when there'd be a master class and it was kind of a flop, it's because you hear, oh, just play like me. Just play like this, right? I think we've all kind of sat through a master class or a lesson where you're like, and so fundamentally, I always go, well, why? Why are we doing this? What are the reasons, for approaching it in this way? So going back to your original question, I don't know, just a little bit of that kind of wherewithal and that curiosity just kind of led me to start doing outreach concerts, applying for for the award that really propels my interest of outreach. So that's what Pro Musicus is. And then I applied for the Carnegie Hall Fellowship, which was 2 years. And that was like everything that I mean, it was such a hard 2 years because there was so much. It was performing regularly at Carnegie Hall and Juilliard and a lot of other places around New York. But we also had to go through that training I was talking about earlier of the training of the teaching artists. And just juggling that was like, whoa. And then the second year I approached them and I said, hey, I want to start a wine and music festival.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, yeah, I have slowed down just a little bit, but I mean, I was like really buzzing off of that New York energy, and I just, it was insane.
Seems like you really have done well, and these roles have prepared you in the position you are today. And, you know, I have to say that that is amazing. And to also have self-actualization, that's something that's not common, especially amongst musicians.
Not still self-actualizing and still trying. I thought that part of the question also involved how do you balance it all? It's like I don't want to answer that. It's too hard.
Yeah. No, I think that we learn to balance it, right? And it's quite often than not, you know, balancing is always going to be a challenge. And, you know, we're not perfect as human beings, but we do our best to, you know, be the best versions of ourselves. And it seems like you have done really well in that department. And I just wanted to say that, you know, being in the position of a student and teacher, we all have different approaches, right? So just out of curiosity, what would be yours, and how should we approach teaching and educating others?
It's really about finding what the other person wants and seeing if you're the right person to help deliver on that. You know, I don't like it seeing there be like a square peg trying to jam into a round hole kind of instance. You know, with teaching and the students that I have coming to me, I mean, there's sort of an auto selection that happens, you know, when someone goes to my website and they read about my philosophy and all the things that I've done and accomplished, you know, they realize, wait, I don't think she's willing to just be like a half an hour musical babysitter, and there won't be any kind of practice that we need to do throughout the week, right? So most of the people that come to me, they're serious about the respect that they give to the instrument. I don't need to produce, you know, all competition goers. You know, there's nothing there to prove. If my students are feeling like they are excelling at their best, and that's great. I love it when it just happens to be like, oh, let's enter into this competition and they win. I'm like, cool. You know, that's a wonderful, you know, side, you know, bonus there. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, it's always, and I think that question is always left out. I mean, as I told you, I'm kind of like a lifelong enrolled university student.
Yes.
Of course, when you're young, when you're in your bachelor's degree, maybe obviously musicians know earlier on than other career professions that they know what they want to do.
Yeah.
But there still is a really undefined idea in their head. You know, it's still common for people to be like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to play concertos with orchestras. It's like, well, okay. And what percentage of your career is going to be that, you know? And so I guess there isn't really a really thought out, well-defined approach to helping students be the best that they can be when, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, if you're a music student. So, you know, one of the new things that has been occurring is just more integration in conservatories and school of music schools, that there's an entrepreneurial aspect that should be focused or given to the students so that they understand how to be self-starters and how to really think, even if they're not going to self-start anything, but they're really thinking for themselves. It's just asking, well, what's my purpose? What do I love doing? Why do I do it? And how am I going to do it? So there's more of a clear approach to that. So I think teachers have to always check in with their students, and students can also reach out to their teachers for that help. You know, a piano lesson isn't just, well, come in and play your scales and play your, you know, piece, and that's it. You know, I'm there for the whole human being.
That's a very wholesome approach, and I can definitely appreciate that.
Wonderful.
What would you tell young artists who are like-minded and striving to be like you or pursuing a similar career path to you?
Well, I wear so many hats, and I think that's something that musicians do. You know, like even if you're solely performing and you're signed on by an artistic management company, you know, bravo, like that's great, but it's still not going to encompass your entire career. I don't think, you know, there's so much, we're all multifaceted. We're human beings. We have different interests. So, you know, I just like, one of the things I love doing is just surrounding myself by people who are smarter than me, you know, and learning from them. For me, starting a nonprofit, really, that's a part that I really love, because, you know, growing up, we're all surrounded by like-minded musicians, usually. I mean, but we all kind of on the same thing, which is performance, and if you're a performance major.
Yes.
But even when we're inside music, the conversation of business doesn't come around. So I feel like I'm equally left and right brained. You know, I was never like completely on one side or the other. And so when I found myself asking and being able to ask for advice and mentorship from really successful business leaders, that to me was just, it was eye-opening. You know, I was never someone who really asked for help. You know, I think there's a lot to unpack there, but oftentimes we don't like feeling that vulnerable, right? It's not really the safest space sometimes to be vulnerable as a student. You know, that people say, I feel like I commonly tell people, it's like, what's the one piece of advice you give people? It's like, don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, and I finally have learned to ask for help, and it's amazing. You know, it's like, oh, you know, sometimes there's someone better suited to, you know, to the job that you need help with, you know, and they're happy to do it. So there's just, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think for any musician trying to have a performance career, you know, teach, start a nonprofit, I think just being grounded is also good too. Don't be so arrogant. And just, yeah, like being humble is the best thing. Yeah, I think, you know, because no one wants to work with someone who's completely bullheaded.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion. Sometimes crazy power mongers attract other crazy power mongers, but that doesn't sound like a wonderful ecosystem. So the question is how, you know, if someone wants to follow my particular path, it's really just being open-minded, learning from others, and really asking for help from those resources.
Being vulnerable is the most difficult decision one can make, but it can be the best. It is always going to be the best decision, especially when it comes to asking for help or addressing certain issues. And, you know, two minds are better than one.
Yeah, and if there's ever, you know, advice that you may not agree with, that's fine. You know, you can always get third opinions, fourth opinions. You know, our profession tends to idolize figures a lot. I mean, that's
Yes.
in circulation, especially with James Levine's passing too, right? You know, there are a ton of articles about, well, you know, just the discussion boards have been really riveting, but there's a lot of idolatry, you know. Oh, that person can play like a perfect Paganini caprice. Okay, cool. You know, awesome.
I mean, they're a great person, or that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So you can take, you know, you can take what is helpful, but keep in mind that you know, in our profession, there's a lot of pedestals, and so again, being grounded and, you know, having and moving forward in life like that is healthy.
You are absolutely right on that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for also being vulnerable. So I was also wondering, what are your thoughts on the classical music scene today, and what measures can we take to sustain the arts?
So as a whole, you know, classical music, it takes on many forms. You know, I think oftentimes when we think of classical music, we think of the symphony or the opera, or, you know, but there are so many elements of it. You know, classical music will never, in my opinion, expire or, you know, go endangered. So it depends, you know, the question could, it just depends on, you know, the questions like, well, if you're talking about sustainability of classical music, then that's different. And also it differs between what organization you're talking about. You know, I think that symphonies, you know, obviously they're seeing difficulties. The opera, well, this last year, of course, just like wrecked everything, especially so. You know, people tend to focus on the real fundamental needs first, like you know, like if you're hungry, you can't function, right? So food needs to be on the table, and shelter, clothing, that kind of thing. And what's always arguable, it seems, is the arts, which you and I know is not dispensable.
No,
it's part of it's our soul. You know, human essence is portrayed through arts in so many different ways. So I think there's always this battle of trying to defend the arts, you know, as a necessity. People know that it's a necessity. Even someone who thinks they don't need the arts, you know, have had the arts mold and shape and touch their lives like every day, you know. So, you know, it's a big question, but I think that you know, from a tactical perspective, most musicians or most artists don't really, we're not trained to have those kinds of conversations. We're just kind of like we're kind of like the feeling, the doing, you know, rather than the thinking and logical, like, you know. So usually there's like a clash right in the middle.
Yeah, that's also probably my struggle in many ways.
You're talking to the executive and artistic director of a nonprofit, so that's really a good balancing act. It's like normally you have the artistic side going, I want this and this and this and this, and the executive director going, well, there's only X amount of dollars, you know, this is our budget. And so yeah, it really fits in with the being equally left and right brained. I stop myself before I dream ridiculously huge things. I mean, so yeah, that's my battle. I really appreciate artists who have incredible dreams. I mean, like, yeah, you know, let's build a Sistine Chapel. You know, those are really important. So you have to find that partnership. You know, I think that if you're really creative, it's good to have balance. You know, talk to someone who can understand you. You know, not to just be a jerk and butt heads with you, but to find that common ground and to work together.
You're right. And I think teamwork is absolutely integral in helping that, formulate. And
Yeah, and being respectful of both sides. Yeah.
absolutely. With the way of the world today, especially in the US, and as a musician of BIPOC, how can we bring in cultural diversity and openness to society?
There's a lot of conversations that are happening that have never happened before. Even just the recent surge of Asian American violence, right, or violence towards Asian Americans. We're commonly like that model minority, like, oh, we do things. We don't want to create any waves. And I actually grew up very much in that mindset. So
Yeah.
I'm really identifying with a lot of articles which are coming out. And so, there are pioneers, people who are taking that stand to really highlight particular cultures that have been really just suppressed. There's always been suppression throughout history of composers and composer voices. And so I think if people just continue making the art that they do, being a representative of their culture, it's extremely important. And yeah, it's given me a lot of time for and give me a reason to be really introspective about this topic.
Absolutely. And it is really hard to, represent your culture, because I believe, as someone who was born in North America but has Asian background, that's also a struggle because we identify as both. And sometimes one, etiquette dictates the other, unfortunately, or the mannerism of it. And it seems that that's where the conflict arises, and the way people view us as well. I think that perspective definitely needs to change, and there has to be more conversation of that.
I'm the first generation from immigrant parents, and a lot of people lose sight of that, especially with the second to last election. I don't want to go into politics here, but I had been in person I'd been at at the dining room table of someone who is completely smashing down immigrants. And I'm like, hey, by the way, did you know that I'm actually a daughter of an immigrant? Like it's quite fascinating how people have perceptions. So I think sharing these stories is important, and hopefully people are receptive to listening. That can be difficult.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I think that was also a very important topic that we needed to address, especially with the way things are. And it's really important to educate others about what really goes on behind the scenes, rather than just say what it is on the surface. And bringing up that conversation also, makes me question, have you ever experienced any bias towards you because of who you are, as with your ethnicity and your background?
Yeah, of course. I tend to downplay mine. It's interesting because something I read recently was like, why are we downplaying, our experiences? Well, it's like, I'm not literally being slapped in the face by someone. This is happening. Like, can't imagine. Yeah, there's always that kind of like assumption, like, oh, you're Asian, of course you play piano. I also played violin too growing up. I can make fun of that. But it's the values that my family had. I actually took ballet too. My parents really valued culture, that sense of culture. Yeah, there are just little instances. I was always so growing up in Las Vegas, the population wasn't really, the Asian population wasn't huge. So I would be one of maybe 5 Asian kids in my school. so yeah, just even I had my own biases growing up, not even realizing I had them too. I felt more comfortable. It's very strange. Like I just never hung out with a ton of Asians until I was with my family in San Jose. I was surrounded by my cousins and we all went out, out on the town. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the most Asian surroundings I've ever been in, with friends. It's just fascinating. And when I've traveled overseas, I actually receive, some racial remarks, more so than within Las Vegas or within the States, just because I speak fluent English here. Mm-hmm. So when someone hears me speak, I'm lucky in that, I don't receive any pushback. But going to Italy, going to Greece, France, mm-hmm. Definitely, like patriarchy, white male patriarchy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would even say that is associated with the Me Too movement of how they view us in a sense, because the patriarchy has been the problem.
Yeah, and of course we're dabbling. Our whole profession is based off of we're playing music by Bach, Beethoven, and yeah. So it's just the way that's how the world has functioned. So interesting times now, honestly, very interesting times, because these are conversations, that involves multiple minorities. Sometimes when there's just one minority group that's only speaking, there's more strength in numbers. So I'm glad that we're supporting each other.
Absolutely. And I got your back, girl.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my curiosity also led me to ask you this question. Seeing how it is a very white privileged male society in the classical music industry, would you say one of the active ways we could do is to, play pieces by people of color, people who are in part of the BIPOC? Would you say that would be a great way of sustaining and educating others?
That's actually kind of a catch-22. So, playing those works are super important. Mm-hmm. Whether you're going to get the audience that you want is the question. Someone who is a white supremacist is not going to not going to stay when you make a statement. It could be subtle. I mean, again, this is all kind of like within the tactical of like how to maneuver within these spaces. You can be rebellious and be like, just splash paint on the walls, figuratively, or it can be subtle steps, So I think that there can be ambassadors and advocates to bring BIPOC voices forward. Yes. And doing it in a way, I mean, if you're trying to convince someone on the other side of any kind of spectrum, the political realm, you don't do it by, full on force,
Guess not.
No. That conversation needs to happen. So yeah, doing is good, but again, like, why are we doing it, and how are we going to do that? So there's a lot of strategy that can happen, that needs to happen, or not. I mean, like, sometimes things just happen because it happens and it's luck. But yeah, I try to think a little more tactically and strategically as of late.
I believe my ethnic background allowed me to do things slightly differently and also helped me set up for my success, especially in the sense that, when you come from a family with immigrant parents, it's often that they struggle and they want a better life for their children, right? And mm-hmm. the fact that they teach you at an early age that hard work is going to help you achieve your goals. I feel that that's something that has been brought up in every immigrant's upbringing and when they, immigrate to Canada or the States. And I feel that that's something that people don't see behind, closed doors. They just see the final product. And I think that it's often important to acknowledge that, without our parents, it's incredibly difficult without, having that cultural background, without having really an identity to also relate to it. It becomes sort of a stigma, and I think it's really important to address that in today's society.
Yeah, we're not just born with the things that's around us. We're all shaped and molded by what we see when we're growing up. There's so much influence. And with the example of immigrant families, a first generation child will see how their parents are living their lives. I mean, they have definitely set things up for us to live better lives. That's the hope, I believe, of every single generation. If you have kids, you want your kids' life to be better than yours. So yeah, there's a story behind everyone. One of my favorite series on Facebook is Humans of New York. And it's a really wonderful photo series that where this photographer, journalist, Brandon, stops a random person on the street and takes a series of photos and asks them for their story. And there's such commonality in every human experience. There's love and heartbreak and financial woes, and it's amazing because New York has such a diverse population of ethnicities, and that you just see everyone has commonalities, and it's really that's the beautiful thing about humans.
Absolutely. And I will definitely check out that podcast because it sounds
He also published a book. I think the book's right there. It's a wonderful.
Cool. Want to show us?
Yeah, let's see. This is his latest one. It's called Humans. So he went around the world and documented different people around the world.
Amazing.
And it's really beautiful. And sometimes he doesn't show their faces because it's really, anonymous. It's really a difficult story, but it's great. It's on Facebook.
Okay, I'll definitely check it out. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
And going back to your success as a pianist and a performer and, just a musician, what is your regimen in preparing for concerts?
I definitely like having a concert date to give me something to work towards. If I don't have a concert date, we have all kind of experiences within the last year, performing musicians didn't have a gig. I actually had a few things, which was like remarkable. It was mind blowing. I was like so grateful. Mm-hmm. I want to know what the end result, what the music sounds like. So finding a recording or two, just to get a sense of what that music sounds like. And then just working towards that. I'm not, I kind of go insane with practicing as it gets closer and closer. I like to be efficient with my practicing. So I don't like to dwell on repeating the same passage 50 million times unless if it absolutely calls for that. So I really try to put it into context as fast as possible, because if I don't know what the musical phrase is about, I just don't want to be hammering out something that sounds like technical exercises all day. I just can't do it. It's just not in my being. My MO is more like, okay, let's make this as it's supposed to sound ASAP. So whether that means just kind of focusing in on one section at a time for a day. I actually have to do this for a new piece that a friend of mine here in Vegas has written. It's his first etude, and it's really cool. I just posted it on Facebook, actually, but in Instagram. But yeah, it utilizes a drumming pattern, which is right, left, right, right, then left, right, left, left. So the whole thing is right, left, yeah. So I had to get used to like that drumming pattern too. So, and with etudes, you just can't accomplish things within, you can't learn that piece like within 2 hours. So yeah, just breaking it up by sections. And then I like to get things up to performance quality, as I said. So the first page I started yesterday, and today I cemented it. But yeah, it's memorized and like practically up to performance speed. Yeah.
That's amazing. And we'll definitely share the link below so that the audience can see you perform that particular piece. And I was also wondering, can you tell me more about your other recent projects and your upcoming projects?
So Notes with a Purpose right now is snoozing during the pandemic. A lot of what we did, it was special because it was in person. I would send live musicians who to schools, because the schools literally don't get any live musicians visiting them. We poll the schools, we see that they're designated Title I school, which means that the income is lower, they need special resources. So I send in musicians there. And to do that online, it just takes away a bit of that. It doesn't have that same essence. So, and also it's really hard to do a wine and music pairing. I mean, I could send out boxes, and I just said, I'm not going to do that, and that is the biggest lesson from this past year that I had learned, that it's okay to not do something. I went from going 1,000 miles per hour, launching the festival, coming out of New York. I mean, I was literally a whirlwind. No one could keep up with me, and now it's about creating space and boundaries to say, I'm a human being, something does, someone isn't suffering because I promised something and it's not going to be there. So, it's important for all of us to take that time to say, let's hunker down, let's plan for the next thing. Of course, my hunkering down meant that I joined the board of Opera Las Vegas.
Oh my goodness. You take on too much.
A lot. So that has been really busy because they're laying down a strategic plan. It's a 26-year-old organization, and doing some major overhaul, and that requires a lot of strategic planning. So that's what I've been busy bringing myself in. But I know that when I come back with the nonprofit work, my own nonprofit work, Notes with a Purpose, it'll be really well thought out. And I think that's what everyone I feel has been experiencing, that this being quarantined with the pandemic really shows you what you really care about and what's important. And, I think we all have like this BS filter now. It's like, okay, have that. And so I think that's been important. I have 2 concerts, or actually 4 performances next month, which is very exciting. Solo piano concerts, all Chopin. So that'll be really, really fun and meaningful, because playing for a live audience, I've not done that, in over a year. So, so that's my next solo project. I'm learning this etude by my friend, just because he wrote a really cool piece, and I'm like, I should learn it he gave it to me to learn, so I need to learn it. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds all so amazing, and I hope you will keep me updated on that, because I definitely, even if it's live performance and it's streaming, I would love to catch a glimpse of it or be able to see the whole thing. So yeah, please be sure to share that with me.
Sure. Absolutely. It's actually, it's funny because I think we've all seen the ads for this. It's the Candlelight series.
Oh no!
Oh, yeah, you've seen those ads.
Yes,
Mhm.
I
I've absolutely, I saw those ads more than half a year ago and I went, who is playing this stuff? Like,
have. Yeah.
because they don't list the performer. And so they reached out to me to play the Chopin. And I was like, oh, okay, it's valid. Like, it's totally fine.
Legit, so you can do it.
It was really funny because I think we all the musicians had that question, like, who are they hiring? Like all of Vivaldi, like, why would I pay to see? So that's something that I find fascinating is that they're not looking for an audience of classical music goers typically. Maybe they're looking for that curious person who's like, oh, Chopin sounds nice. Like, I just want to experience it. Oh, and all candlelight. I'm going to be playing pseudo in the dark. Like, I'm just going to be surrounded by candles.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah. So, obviously, it's more atmospheric. I mean, I'm whipping out really difficult pieces. I'm like, okay, like, well, I'm not playing all nocturnes. I only do nocturnes. But, it's just kind of funny how, yeah, you've been pitched that Facebook ad. I'm sure the viewers have too.
Yes. Well, now that I know that you're playing, maybe I'll give it a go.
There's real people playing. It may be
Eureka! Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. I do have a final question for you. And
okay.
that involves, how would you spend Asian Heritage Month?
So I get to see my parents twice a week. I always feel like every month is Asian Heritage Month with them. Like they're constantly supplying me with food. I feel like anything that says Asian heritage equals food. So
Yes.
yeah, the light answer to that question is I just got vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated. Starting next week, I can feel okay, but just kind of maybe going to my first restaurant. I don't know. I'm still, oh man, I'm kind of like, I really miss restaurants because Vegas has so many wonderful restaurants. And my parents make great Chinese and Vietnamese food. But I miss sushi. I just, I want the all you can, I will eat my way through Asian Heritage Month. I think that's a fantastic question. And also, just really celebrating people and encouraging those with strong voices to come out, with their stories. And yeah, sharing my support where I can, donating to a cause, perhaps, yeah, for any AAPI kind of stuff, or yeah.
That's amazing. And maybe we can even celebrate by me getting takeout and you doing a Zoom chat, since I haven't been vaccinated and the border's still closed, but that might be a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Takeout all the way.
Oh, for sure. And it made me recall that story about that time where you and I went for Thai food.
Yes.
And
that was really good.
Yes, we went full on Asian Heritage Month. That
in Banff. In Banff, Alberta.
Yes, we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was absolutely amazing to have you here today, Alex. Thank you so much for your time and for all your words of wisdom and for being you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being you too. This was absolutely fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So for those of you who are watching, thanks for tuning in. After this, there will be a wonderful performance of Alex. So please be sure to stay, as I'm sure you will not want to miss this. Please enjoy. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. In the meantime, please continue to bend the curve and practice safe social distancing so that we may all be able to attend future performances in good health. In the meantime, be well.
Are you ready for your debut? Okay. Play piano. Coda, come on, play piano. Go on, play. Good boy. Okay. All right. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, take a bath. Good boy.